Hey everybody, and welcome to the return of MCU Q&A. I'm Doug Herring, your host, and longtime fans of this channel will remember that about a year ago we had this series, MCU Q&A, where we answer your questions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, that series had to go on hold for a little while we figured some stuff out with the site, but thankfully I am happy to announce that it is back. So, what do we need from you? It's very simple. All we need is your questions about anything related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You want to know what my favorite character is, you want to know what the chances we might see Galactus are, whatever you want to know, ask it below in the comments section or email it to me at doug@mcuexchange.com. We read every single comment and every single question, so if we like your question, you will see it answered in this video. Or the next one, maybe. So anyway, with that being said, let's get to the questions. This question comes from Homunculus97, who asks, how do you think they should incorporate more supernatural-based characters into the MCU if they ever do that? I love this question because I have a great answer for it, or at least I think it's great. The supernatural or occult side of the Marvel Comics universe is the one aspect that really hasn't made its way into the MCU yet. We have a little bit of a taste of it with Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and maybe a little bit more with Doctor Strange, but not really. We haven't really gotten into, there are no vampires, we haven't had a Legion of Monsters or a Midnight Suns team up. And that's exactly what I'd like to see happen, and I think the perfect outlet for it is FX. FX with Legion and Fargo and Atlanta and Archer and It's Always Sun. I mean, they're becoming a network where almost everything they do is amazing. They are, in terms of prestige television, right up there with Netflix and HBO. So I would love to see a Marvel partnership with them, and I think they have the right style and the right brand to do a Midnight Suns team-up. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Midnight Suns is a team in the Marvel Comics that has a very supernatural, occulty bend to it, led by currently Morbius, who is a vampire. So I would love to see him. I'd love to see Blade, Man-Thing, Ghost Rider. It doesn't have to be Robbie Reyes if they want to ignore the stuff that happened on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Just pick a different Ghost Rider and have him join the team. Werewolf by Night. There are tons and tons of amazing Hellstorm, tons of amazing supernatural characters that get their powers either through magic or a monster or demons or whatever. And to put those all in one place and have to assemble into a team to fight some huge occult threat would be just awesome. And it doesn't quite fit Netflix. It doesn't quite fit Hulu. It doesn't fit the young adult universe they seem to be building on Freeform, so I think it needs its own corner of the MCU, and my destination of choice would be FX. So that's my choice. Marvel, hope you're paying attention. Midnight Suns team up with a bunch of different series on FX. Do it.
Do it.
Philip Wilson asks, who would you want to see in the MCU first? Doctor Doom or Galactus? Great question. Thank you for asking it, Philip. Gosh, that's a tough one. One of the reasons that I want to see Marvel make a deal with Fox for the Fantastic Four rights is not actually to see the Fantastic Four themselves. It's to see some of the villains that the Fantastic Four have. They have maybe the best villains in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Comics universe, whether you're talking about Galactus or Doom or Kang, a bunch of others. So, which would I want to see first? My first instinct is Doom, because Galactus is a huge threat, which we have right now with Thanos. Thanos is basically going to destroy the universe, destroy some planets, and that is essentially what Galactus does. Galactus fans, I know you're probably saying that's way oversimplifying what Galactus is about, and Thanos fans, you're saying that's way oversimplifying what Thanos is about. You're both right. I'm oversimplifying, but in terms of the scale of the threat and the type of threat, Thanos and Galactus aren't as different as Doom is. Doom is completely unique in the Marvel Universe. Doom is the kind of guy that he truly wants to make the world a better place, and he believes that the only way to do so is if he rules it. And the weird thing is, he's not wrong. If you look at Latveria in the comics, the country that he runs, it's a dictatorship, but it's a benevolent dictatorship. He's taken it from a third world impoverished country to basically a utopia. So yeah, a villain where you really think he might be right, that's something we haven't really had. One of the things that I liked about Doctor Strange was that Caecilius, when he is talking to Doctor Strange about, defeating death and how the Ancient One's hypocritical because she uses the Dark Dimension as well, you have a moment where Strange considers what he's saying and starts to think that maybe he's right. And in fact, that is partially what turns Mordo, is the realization of the Ancient One's hypocrisy. So taking that one step further, and not just a villain where you think he might be right for a second, but a villain where you actually think he could be right, and everything the heroes do to stop him doesn't do anything to prove that he wouldn't be right. That's just so interesting to me. Plus, Galactus and Doom have both made film appearances, and they were both horrible. But Doom has been done multiple times, and multiple times they've gotten him so wrong. And I would just love to see the MCU take a really good shot at Doom and get him right. As for who would play him, Mads Mikkelsen, who played Caecilius in Doctor Strange, would have been a great choice. I saw somebody suggest Riz Ahmed a little while ago, and if you watch MCUX, you know Riz Ahmed is one of the few actors that I'm just dying to get into the MCU. I don't know if that's the exact right role for him, but I would be certainly happy if he was cast. Another one, Glenn Howerton, who plays Dennis on It's Always Sunny. He was in the running for Star-Lord, which would have been an interesting choice. But I think he could actually be a pretty decent Doom as well. I think, everybody knows him as a comedic actor, but I think he has some dramatic chops as well. And somebody who plays Doom needs to be hammy and be able to really kind of play up the more theatrical elements of the character. So yeah, thanks for the question, Philip, but short answer, I love both villains. I want to see both. Doom is unique. Doom is special. Doom has a special place in my heart, so I want to see him first. Okay, the Flaming BVB asks, which MCU movie do you think will be the best of 2017, and which do you think will be the worst? For me, he thinks the best will be The Guardians, the worst will be Ragnarok. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think Ragnarok might wind up being the best. I'm probably in the minority with that opinion, but Ragnarok is going to introduce so many things that set up Infinity War, which in the past has been a little concerning, because you look at Iron Man 2, that did a lot of setup for the Avengers, and it suffered as a movie because of it. Same thing with Age of Ultron. It was trying to set up Infinity War, and so it felt a little crowded. It didn't really have time to be its own thing. But Taika Waititi is such a great director. I'm so excited to see what he does with Thor. I think this is going to be the movie that elevates Thor to the same level as Iron Man or Captain America in terms of how much people like him. Because with Iron Man, immediately on his first movie, everybody loved Iron Man, right? Captain America's first movie was good, one of my favorites of Phase 1 actually, but not the kind that made him everybody's favorite. The Winter Soldier is really the movie that made people go, oh wait, Captain America is way more badass than I ever thought. And he's been pretty much tied with Iron Man for popularity ever since. Thor and Hulk are definitely like a step down from that, and I think Ragnarok is going to be the movie that makes people. Ragnarok will be the movie that convinces people that their favorite Avenger might be Thor. And so I'm so excited for that. I'm excited to see Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster. I'm excited to see Doctor Strange team up with Thor. I'm excited to see all of it. In terms of the worst, this is an impossible question because I'm insanely excited for all three movies, and I think all three of them are going to be great. But I have to say Spider-Man Homecoming. Not because I think it'll be bad. I think it's going to be really, really great. But it's Sony, and Sony has a habit of not making great movies, and I'm just expecting there will be some elements of Homecoming that just don't really make a ton of sense with the character. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't trust Amy Pascal, I don't trust Sony, I do trust Kevin Feige, and he's producing it, so, fingers crossed. But I think Homecoming is going to be a really, really good movie. I hope it'll be a great movie, But Guardians of the Galaxy, I know is going to be great. That comes out in less than a month. I can't be more excited for it. And Ragnarok, I think, could be the defining movie of Phase 3. I'm that excited about Ragnarok. So, if I'm that excited for the other two movies, the only one remaining is Homecoming, which I'm still incredibly excited for. I still think is going to be great. But yeah, if I had to pick one that will be the least great, it's that one. Okay, moving on. Blockter Who Unlimited wants to know, what female superhero would you want to see introduced into the MCU? Great question, and great name. We have lots of female superheroes coming to the MCU soon. We have Squirrel Girl in the new Warriors TV show that just got announced. We, of course, have Captain Marvel. I'd love to see Miss Marvel. I don't know if I want to see her in the movies or TV show. TV show does give her, probably more character development, but if you leave her out of the movies, then you don't get to see her interaction with Captain Marvel, which isn't cool either. So, I don't know. I'd love to see Miss Marvel. I'd love to see Kate Bishop. I think that Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is one of the best series. If you haven't read Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, even if you don't read comic books, read Hawkeye. It's amazing. It will make you love Hawkeye, but it will make you a little bit disappointed in the MCU version of Hawkeye. Because as much as I like Jeremy Renner, and as much as I like Hawkeye in the MCU, it's just not as good as the Hawkeye in Matt Fraction's in those stories. And it never will be that version because it's just the character as established in the MCU, it just doesn't fit. But I think Kate Bishop, who is the second Hawkeye, for those of you who don't know, I think you could use her and turn her into sort of that version of not a superhero, just kind of a schmuck trying to survive and make it and, goes on all these, amazing adventures with the Avengers, but then goes home and has to figure out how they're going to pay rent. Kate Bishop has, I don't know if it's still going, to be honest, solo series. I don't think it's still going. Solo series where she teams up with Jessica Jones when she starts Hawkeye investigations in LA. I think that'd be cool. I think to see her as a private investigator, that's not quite as hard drinking and gritty as Jessica Jones was. That'd be cool. What else would I like to see? She-Hulk. Now, I know that the connection with Hulk makes it a little bit difficult to introduce her, but the MCU needs a legal drama. And I was hoping we'd get a little bit of that with Daredevil, but they've been real light on the courtroom stuff. She-Hulk, she's a lawyer, and I think a show really, playing that up would be great. Any other female characters I'm dying to see? None that spring to mind, but yeah, I think more female characters is obviously better, and there are tons in the roster that could add different flavors to the MCU in terms of things that we've just never seen before. So those are my immediate picks just off the top of my head. Thanks for your question. Okay, our last question comes from Ignacio A., who asks, what comic book event or story that is not currently in Marvel's plans would you like to see turned into a movie like they did with Civil War? Great question, and I think the one that I'd be most interested in seeing right now is Secret Invasion. For anybody not familiar, that's the story where the Skrulls, which are a shape-shifting alien race, they have this long-term invasion of Earth where they replace certain Avengers, certain heroes, and they just assume their identities. And so you don't know who's a Skrull, who's the real version of themselves. You don't know who to trust. And I would love to see that because it basically gives another excuse to do a Civil War where Avengers are fighting Avengers, but you don't have to come up with a conflict for why Captain America and Iron Man are mad at each other. You don't have to introduce Civil War 2 because that's a bad idea. Why would anybody ever do that? The Civil War 2 comic event was so disappointing. So not that one, but the Secret Invasion story was really good, and Marvel does have the rights to Skrulls, I believe. That's one of those things where I think they share the rights, or they don't have the rights to all the Skrulls. Certain Skrulls are with Fox, so they might have to change a few things about it to make it work. But the LMD storyline in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially those last few episodes where you weren't sure who was an LMD anymore. You weren't sure who you could trust. Excuse me. That was one of the best arcs of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet. probably to be replaced by this current one. By the way, guys, if you're not watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you should be watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's really, really good this season. But so the LMD arc is kind of a perfect example of that who do you trust storyline working excellently. I'd love to see that brought into the movies, into the wider MCU, especially maybe a couple years down the road. Not too soon, because like I said, we just saw Civil War. We don't want to see Avengers fighting Avengers immediately, but yeah, maybe 5 or 6 years from now, a Secret Invasion storyline would be super cool. So that's my choice. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode of MCU Q&A. We'll be back next week. This is going to be a weekly show, but in order for it to be a weekly show, we need your questions. So please jump into the comments now and ask your questions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Anything you want, no wrong answers, no dumb questions here. And make sure you've liked and subscribed and all that stuff on all the social media. We're at MCU Exchange on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe, hit the bell, do the YouTube thing. You guys know what to do. Yeah, but thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.